Now that we've mastered looking at fractional exponents, we're going to look at how to solve a power when the exponent is a negative. So we have a rule for this, and the rule says that if I have x to the negative b, I can rewrite that by putting my base of x in my denominator, and I can take my negative exponent, which is a negative b, and I can write it as a positive b attached to my base number. So that's the rule. So x to the negative b equals the reciprocal of x, which is 1 over x, and then my negative exponent would become positive. So if we look at a couple of examples, our first example says evaluate each power. So in A, we have 7 to the negative 2, and if I evaluate that, the reciprocal of 7 is 1 over 7, and our negative 2 then becomes a positive 2. So in order to evaluate that, I want to know what is 1 squared. So 1 times 1 is 1. And now what is 7 squared? Well, 7 times 7 is 49. So my answer is 1 over 49. If I look at example B, I have a fraction as my base, so I have 10 over 3 to the exponent negative 3. So our rule says to take the base and to take the reciprocal, so instead of 10 over 3, I have 3 over 10. And our exponent, which was a negative 3, now becomes a positive 3. So if I evaluate that, 3 cubed is 3 times 3 times 3, which is 27. And 10 cubed is 10 times 10 times 10, which is 1,000. And if you look at that fraction, that's in lowest terms, so 27 over 1,000 would be our answer. How would I evaluate the power if the base was a decimal? Well, if we look at our example in C, I have negative 1.5 raised to the power of negative 3. So I can change that to a fraction the same as we did last day. So negative 1.5 is currently over 1. And I can change that by moving my decimal place one place to the right in the numerator, which means I have to move it one place to the right in the denominator, and that gives me negative 15 over 10. So I can rewrite this as negative 15 over 10 to the exponent negative 3. So I've changed my decimal to a fraction. Now I have to evaluate, so I need to take the reciprocal of the base, which in this case is negative 15 over 10. So the reciprocal, if I flip it upside down, would be 10 over negative 15. And my exponent, which was a negative 3, is now going to be a positive 3. So if I evaluate that, 10 cubed, so 10 times 10 times 10 is 1,000. And negative 15 cubed would be negative 3,375. So if I reduce that, I'm not going to get a nice friendly fraction, so I'll leave it in decimal form. Would give me roughly negative 0.296, and that would be our answer to that question. If we combine this property with the property of last day, so what happens when our negative exponent also has a fraction in it, we would get examples like the following. So we want to evaluate each power. So in A, I have 16, and it's raised to the exponent negative 5 over 4. So our rule for the negative exponent says I have to take the reciprocal of the base. So instead of 16, it would be 1 over 16. And our exponent, instead of negative 5 over 4, now is a positive 5 over 4. Now, in order to evaluate a fractional exponent, we need to remember the rule from last day. So I copy the base as my radicand, and I rewrite it as a radical. So my denominator is 4. That means that my index is 4. And when I evaluate that, I need to raise my answer to the power of 5. So if I break that down further, that means I have to find the quartic root of 1 as well as the quartic root of 16 and evaluate that before raising it to the power of 5. So the quartic root of 1 is 1, And the quartic root of 16 is 2. And now I have to raise that to the power of 5. So 1 to the power of 5 is 1. And 2 to the power of 5 is 32. So my answer would be 1 over 32. And for our last example, if we look at B, we have 25 over 36 raised to the power of negative a half. So this one has a fraction as our base. It also has a fraction as our exponent. As well, our exponent is negative. So we take it one step at a time. To get rid of the negative exponent, I take the reciprocal of the base. So instead of 25 over 36, I have 36 over 25. So I have the reciprocal, and now my power is going to be a positive 1/2 instead of a negative 1/2. In order to evaluate the fractional exponent, I need to change this to radical form. So my base of 36 over 25 becomes my radicand. My denominator of 2 becomes my index number. And remember, if your index is a 2, you don't have to write it there if you don't want to. And my new exponent is a 1. So in order to evaluate this, I need to know what is the square root of 36 and what is the square root of 25, and then I need to raise that to the power of 1. So the square root of 36 is 6, and the square root of 25 is 5, and anything raised to the power of 1 is itself, so our answer is 6 over 5.